I shall be presenting some soldering equipment. On the right, we have an iron stand with an LED. It is a modded version, thus it only works with the soldering stations that I'm making. On the left, there is a 45D model soldering station, iconic for its D family, which contains relatively cheap but fully featured soldering stations, and all of them are of course compatible with the C245 JBC cartridge, which is a very high performance one. To make a short tour of this station, we first observe on the right a socket to connect it with an iron stand, and the rest of the controls are only on the frontal panel. There is a power switch, a connector to the handset, the digital display of the temperature, an LED which is a load monitor, and the knob to trim the temperature. The metal body of the connector is connected to the local ground, so you can connect it externally to your own ground. The digital display displays the correct temperature, which is the programmed one, not the one estimated for the tip, which is always deceiving. And the rotary knob is actually on a classic potentiometer, so its position will always count, and every time you will find it where you left it. Let's turn back to the stand. I told you it's modded, and except for the LED on the front, there is also a modded socket on the back. It fits a usual 4mm banana, which you need to have a cable equipped with 2 bananas. Fits on the other side in the station. There are a couple of more things about this stand. First of all, it's plastic, which means that it's sensible to temperature, but in places where there is some risk that you can melt it with the tip, there are silicone insertions, so this one and this one, they are black, not very visible, but they work well to protecting the plastic. You'll touch the silicone rubber, and thus it will keep the integrity of the stand. Changing tips is a frequent thing that you have to do. The idea to buy a station and only buy 1 or 2 cartridges is a wrong one. It's relatively money spent for nothing. You need to have the whole range of tips that you are actually needing, and you have to change it every time it becomes necessary. So the JBC solves in an elegant manner the problem of changing the cartridges, so you will never have to wait for the cartridge to cool down like you do with other solutions, because there is a collar here that you can grip with a special extractor. This stand has an extractor built in, and then you can slide the handpiece and detach the cartridge. Of course, this part of the cartridge is not heated, so you can then insert it into its hole. When you insert it, you let it into a position that it's still free, and then you can slide the cartridge out, but never go here, because now it comes in contact with the wall here, and if you continue to push it this direction, this way, you are prying it and you'll destroy something. Now we should focus on the soldering station. there is an automatic boost function activated whenever the station detects that more power is needed, like when you start the functioning, or when you wake up from the standby mode, or even when you touch a surface that has a very high thermal drainage. Each time it will activate the boost function, you will get more power, but never will that interfere with the program temperature. So when we shall turn on the station, it will detect that it needs more power. It will activate the boost. The light will be red for a while, and just when it gets to the program temperature in the heating resistance, not on the tip, it will take some more time to get to the tip, but when it gets to the program temperature, it will turn the boost off and the light will go green. Let's see, it is not so complicated as the explanation sounds. So it's red, few seconds, and now it stops and it will come back green. For the normal functioning, it will always stay green, except for periods when the demand is much higher. The good thing about the boost function is that on one hand it keeps the effort on the cartridge very low, so it will help with the health and with the long life of all the system. And on the other hand, when you really need the power, you'll get that punch because the boost function will be activated, so the station will behave like a much more powerful one. So let's talk about the other function that I wanted to highlight. It's the standby function. If I insert the handpiece here, it will be a light on the stand, red one, you see it's activated, and at the same time the program temperature drops to the temperature of standby, which is much lower. That comes very good for the life of the cartridge, but also it diminishes much more the oxidation on its surface, so you won't need to clean it that hard and that frequently, long as you use this function. Of course, if you are eco-friendly, you will also appreciate that the consumption is a bit lower in this standby mode. If I lift the handpiece, you will see the boost being activated. This light will turn red, and of course that the light on the stand will turn off. Let's do it. You see, red for a while, and now it will the boost has been deactivated and it goes green as usual. Now the normal temperature that you would be expecting to use with leaded solder is about 300 degrees with JBC, a bit lower than other stations because JBC has such a good conduction, and probably at 300 degrees it's a temperature that you might use when working. Of course, you will have to take the final decision of the proper temperature for your job. It's not 300 and that's it. Maybe you'll go for 290, maybe you'll go for 340. Whatever, it depends on the shape and the drainage in the PCB that you are working on. What I wanted to highlight is that the standby temperature is correlated with the trimmed temperature. So the previous case we were using only 250 degrees as the program temperature, and standby was at about 170 degrees, and now, as you can see, it's 206. If I should turn the knob to a higher position, you see that also the sleeping temperature increases, but this is corresponding to 350 degrees normal.